I want to talk about a huge scam that's happening to filmmakers as we speak. But before I do that, I need to draw a picture of the film industry for you. So in my view, there are three groups of filmmakers. Let's call them groups A, B, and C. The thing that I think distinguishes these three groups from one another is varying levels of access. At the top are the big directors that you're probably imagining. Steven Spielberg, Quentin Tarantino, anybody directing a Marvel movie. These are directors that have access to really big budgets, but also a well-oiled machine which helps develop, shoot, release, and promote their films. Jumping down to the bottom, you've got your filmmakers who are amateurs. And I should specify that when I say amateur, I mean the dictionary definition, which is a person who engages in a study, sport, or other activity for pleasure rather than financial benefit or professional reasons. It's people who are making movies for fun, who haven't been tainted by ambition or the desire to try to get something out of filmmaking. They do it purely for the joy and love of it. Overall, I would venture to say that this group of filmmakers is probably pretty small as well. People in this group don't need access to all the things that I mentioned earlier. They're making movies in their hometowns and they're casting their friends. They're showing them in a local theater or putting them on YouTube. Then you've got the group of filmmakers here in the middle. This is the group that I want to focus on today. They're essentially people that have the ambition of this group, but with the access that's closer to this group. These filmmakers in the middle have some access. They obviously have the means to get some budget to make movies, maybe not a ton, and maybe they have a little bit of other access as well, like the email address of a film programmer or other friends who are filmmakers, and who are maybe in Group A, stuff like that. Now, I want to tell you a hypothetical story about a filmmaker in Category B. So imagine yourself in the shoes of this person. Okay, so you make a feature film for $50,000, which is a small amount of money to make a movie on, to be sure. But if you work at a coffee shop in Ohio, that's a load of money. So through some miracle, lots of hard work, and a million favors, you managed to pull this movie together, and it's awesome. You're so proud of it, and you want to get it out into the world. Common wisdom is that you would want to have a festival run to get people to see it. Stack some laurels for your poster, meet some other filmmakers along the way, and who knows, maybe encounter a potential investor or collaborator. So you submit it to a bunch of film festivals. Let's say that the average festival submission fee is about $50. My rule of thumb for festivals is that you'll get into an average of 10% of the ones that you apply to. This is just an average. Sure, there'll be some incredible movies that get into a ton, but there will also be some that get into none. So just go with me on this 10% thing. So say at the outset that you decide that you would love to play 10 film festivals, which I think is a totally reasonable amount. That means that you'll need to apply to 100 festivals. And with some entry fees going into the triple digits, I'll let you do the math. For my second film, What Children Do, I kept a spreadsheet of every single film festival that I applied to, whether I got in or not, and how much I spent on submission fees. I submitted to 128 festivals and I got into 19, which is about 14%, a little bit higher than the expected average. But that cost me $4,282.50, just on submissions. Okay, so you submitted to a bunch and you ended up getting into a few festivals. If you want to attend those festivals, you'll more than likely have to pay your own way to go. So you're gonna add flights, hotels, food, and transportation to your tab. Not to mention that you'll probably have to take time off work because your film is probably screening on a Thursday at 4 p.m. But fear not, because your film got into a handful of festivals and it actually got some good reviews. And then, out of the blue, a sales agent reaches out to you. They say they want to help you get distribution. Damn, we're in the big leagues now, baby. But before that can happen, you will need to retain said sales agent, which will set you back a few grand, plus a percentage off whatever you get from the distributor. But guess what? Your sales agent found a mid-level distributor who's interested in your film. The deal involves no money up front, and you won't get any theatrical screenings. But they will put you on Amazon, iTunes, and other streaming services. This rules. But before that can happen, you will need to give them what are called deliverables, which include obvious things such as a copy of the film itself, but might also include other things like a trailer, which you will have to cut yourself, poster art, which you will have to provide, caption files in English and Spanish, which you'll have to pay to have made, a dialogue list, which you'll also have to pay to have made, A marketing deck,
which you will probably have to make.
a ton of paperwork, including things like chain of title, credit block, residuals materials, all contracts, all payroll documents, etc. E&O insurance.
You'll have to figure out what that is, and then you'll have to pay for it.
A title report, which this one you actually won't have to pay for yourself.
I'm totally kidding. You have to pay for that one too.
This all adds up to some serious time and money. And if you don't know what any of this stuff is, or you don't have it,
Sorry, buddy. You're screwed.
these films, the one in category A, have to do all this stuff too. But remember, this tier has access to teams of people who do all of this for a living and who understand it like the back of their hand. And category C doesn't need to worry about any of this because nobody's going to require them to run a title report for their film. This group has to do all this stuff themselves, or if they're lucky, with their friends who help produce the movie. And there's a good chance that all this stuff is way over their heads. But you just gotta do it because you wanna get your movie on iTunes, right? So you busted your ass, you got it done, and now your movie is on Amazon and a bunch of other services. So you tell everybody that you know to go rent it. And when your first quarterly report comes in, you see that a bunch of people watched your movie, and it actually brought in some money. More money than you expected. But on the report, the distribution company happened to have line item expenses, which, through some crazy twist of fate, cost the exact same as what the movie brought in. Things like setup fees and marketing expenses. Which is really strange because the extent of their marketing seemed to be one Instagram post on the day that the movie launched, and literally nothing else. So throughout this whole process, you're out thousands, maybe tens of thousands of dollars for a totally unsatisfying and unprofitable outcome. Ask around and you'll find that this story is so common within this middle group of filmmakers. There is an entire cottage industry of predatory distributors that are exactly like this. They sign your film, they dump all the expenses on your shoulders, put it on some streaming services, and then do literally nothing to promote it. It's like a puppy mill for indie films. They probably don't make a ton of money from your one film, but when you scroll through the list of films on their website, you see that they release 1 million mid to low budget indie movies. Taken together, those probably all add up to a nice chunk of change. And the worst part is, a lot of streaming services require you to go through a distributor to be on their service, which I think is how all these guys stay in business. I don't say all this to rain on anybody's parade, but because I feel like a lot of filmmakers aren't really honest about their experiences within this middle tier of filmmaking, and I think that there's a better way. Filmmakers in the middle group have the ambition to have their movies treated like this group, but they have none of the resources that are required to actually make that happen. I think that this leaves this middle group of filmmakers in a vulnerable position to be preyed on by people, which, when it boils down, is really what I think all of this is.
I need to add a mea culpa that not all film festivals, sales agents, or even distributors are like this. There are some genuinely good ones who do love filmmakers and actually want to see their film succeed. And God bless them.
But overall, I would say that this model of filmmaking has become outdated and unsustainable. I wish I had a silver bullet for what needs to change, but I can offer a few ideas for things that I think would be a good start. First of all, film festivals should pay filmmakers screening fees. Imagine going to Lollapalooza, but in this alternate reality, the bands had to pay the festival to play on stage, and were also on the hook for all their own expenses. Film festivals literally exist because of the movies that filmmakers provide, so the least that they could do is compensate them for their work. Second, festivals should also pay for filmmakers' travel. I personally think that it's kind of pointless to have your film play a festival if you're not going to be there. And requiring filmmakers to foot the bill for their flights and hotels doesn't make sense. Again, imagine a lecturer coming to a college to speak, but having to fly themselves out. Lastly, and maybe most importantly, festivals need to prioritize large audiences for screenings. I can't tell you how many festivals that I've gone to where you get bags full of swag like branded socks and liquor and artisanal cookies, and every night they have like a massive swanky party with open bars and DJs, and then you go to your screening and there's like 9 people in the audience. Filmmakers attending festivals literally only care about lots of people coming to see their films. If the parties had peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, nobody would bat an eye if their screening the next day was sold out. I think that the entire film festival ecosystem is propped up by this exploitation of filmmakers, under the guise that filmmakers should be grateful for the exposure. And some film festivals do provide this. Like, if your film plays Sundance, a lot of people will see it. But you can't expect to get handed an entire program of films to screen for free, make the filmmaker foot the bill for all the expenses, and then not actually have people in the audience. As far as distribution, I think that the answer is for filmmakers in this realm, the middle one, to stop trying to have their release be like the films in this one. I think there's a lot of interesting ways that you can release your film without a distributor or sales agent, and at the very least, save a ton of money and more than likely earn more than you would have. You can actually just submit your film to Amazon yourself without any middlemen. And you can also use websites like FilmHub, which allow you to submit your film to a bunch of different streaming services, again, without any middlemen. Vimeo also has a great VOD platform, and I would actually also mention YouTube. I found some interesting filmmakers who make small, low-budget movies and then put them on YouTube for free. Filmmakers like Joel Haver have done this and talked a lot about it. This really goes against the grain of conventional wisdom, but I put my first feature film, Incredibly Small, on Vimeo for free, and it got 66,000 views, which I can almost guarantee you is more people than when I went the traditional route with a distributor.
Is this actually a viable, sustainable solution for most filmmakers? I have no idea.
But if you self-release online, you'll also have a direct line of communication with your audience, and you can see who's interacting with your film. When you get a report from a traditional distributor, you usually have no idea what platform people watched it on, not to say anything about who the audience is or what they thought of the film. Another option is to four-wall a theater and host your own screening. Essentially, rent out a theater and charge admission yourself. A few months back, a friend of mine did just this in Los Angeles. She had a sold-out screening in a theater that was packed with her friends and made it into an entire event, which I think helps get people excited to come out and see your movie. Also, one plus side of the pandemic is that theaters haven't been doing so hot, and they would love for you to rent their space to host a screening. So my message to this group of filmmakers in the middle group is to try to avoid falling victim to the cottage industry of middlemen who prey on overwhelmed, freaked out filmmakers who really just want to get their film out into the world. Don't be afraid to try things that establishment people say that you shouldn't do. You had to be incredibly smart and resourceful to make a movie in this world. So you can figure out creative, ingenious ways to get your film out into the real world out there. And if you do, I would love to see it. Comment where I can watch it and I will check it out. Thank you so much for watching. I'm excited to make more videos about filmmaking, and I hope that you'll subscribe and continue to watch along. See you in the next one.